Tonight on Ukraine Today, massive Russian attack. The occupiers struck with missiles and drones. Sadly, there are casualties and major destruction. Tomahawks for Ukraine. According to US Vice President J.D. Vance, the White House is discussing the possibility of giving these missiles to NATO for transfer to Kyiv. Blackout in Belgorod. Strikes hit energy facilities. Is this Ukraine's mirror response to Russian attacks? Tensions between Kyiv and Budapest. The result of a Hungarian drone violating Ukraine's airspace. All that and more, right now. Hello, my name is Volodymyr Robchun. Please subscribe, give this video a like, and let's move to the news. Russian terrorists launched on Sunday a massive overnight strike on Ukraine with drones and missiles. 4 people were killed in Kyiv and the region, including one child, 12-year-old Alexandra Polishchuk. Another 13 people were injured. Apartment buildings, private homes, a kindergarten, civilian infrastructure, and the Institute of Cardiology were hit. A nurse and a patient were killed there. The building of the Polish embassy were also damaged. More than 40 people were injured in Zaporizhzhia, among them children. The main target was critical infrastructure, but residential buildings, schools, and civilian businesses were also damaged. In the Odessa region, Russian troops hit a civilian enterprise, causing a large fire. A private home was also damaged. Thankfully, there were no casualties. Here's how President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky commented on the strikes.
Russia is once again trying to hit Ukraine with a blackout this year. In fact, during these weeks when the UN General Assembly was taking place, Russia was literally using every day, every hour to strike Ukraine. Very sneaky strikes. And this is what really characterizes Russia. What they do, not what they say or spread around the world with different signals. They rejected all real peace proposals and deserve truly tough pressure.
Zelensky added that this week decisions are expected from Europe and the US on pressure against Russia. According to him, it's crucial that restrictions hit hard on Russia's tanker fleet infrastructure. Intelligence shows that Russians use tankers to launch drones, violating European airspace. Meanwhile, the US is discussing the option of giving Tomahawks to Ukraine. Actually, of giving these missiles to NATO for transfer to Kyiv. That's what the US Vice President J.D. Vance said, noting that President Trump will make the final call. Vance also spoke about America's peace efforts.
So our view is we want peace here. We've been actively pursuing peace from the very beginning of the administration, but the Russians have got to wake up and accept reality here. A lot of people are dying. They don't have a lot to show for it. How many more people are they willing to lose? How many more people are they willing to kill for very little, if any, gain in the military advantage on the ground there? I think the answer is hopefully not that much, but certainly our attitude here is we're going to keep on working for peace, and we hope the Russians actually wake up to the reality on the ground.
For now, it's just words, consultations, but still much more than half a year ago, even a month ago, when the US refused to even talk about it. Now there is a chance Ukraine might finally get these weapons. Most likely, we will learn about it after the fact. Stay tuned. By the way, regarding the reality on the ground, some Russian units near Dobropilla are now encircled. Ukraine's Commander-in-Chief, General Alexander Syrsky, confirmed this. More details about the front lines in our report.
They are suffering enormous losses, but still keep pushing forward without any results. The Russian army still hasn't given up hope of seizing at least a small piece of new Ukrainian territory. In the past 24 hours, there have been nearly 200 combat clashes recorded on the front line. The Russian invaders are most active in the Pokrovsk and Novopavlivka directions. Across the entire front line, the enemy carried out 81 airstrikes, dropping 156 guided aerial bombs on Ukraine. Over the past day, the enemy also conducted 5,118 shellings and launched more than 6,000 drones at Ukrainians.
Donetsk region. Right now, our fighters are working at their maximum there, especially the drone operators in Donetsk region, although it should be noted that the concentration of enemy aircraft in Donetsk region is also just sky high. Sometimes there are 3 or 4 aircraft just patrolling, and now it's happening 24/7.
While the occupiers were striking randomly at peaceful cities and shopping centers, our aviation targeted exclusively military facilities of the Russian army. In particular, the armed forces of Ukraine carried out a high-precision strike on the occupiers' positions in Donbass. According to Ukrainian intelligence, enemy infantry was stationed in 2 of the buildings, and the 3rd Army Corps sent all its personnel to a Kobzon concert, meaning they were eliminated. Meanwhile, in the Pokrovsk direction, our defenders set their sights not on Russian infantry, but on the enemy's expensive heavy equipment. Despite all the crew's efforts, the enemy tank was unable to escape from our drones. Overall, in the Pokrovsk direction, Ukrainian defenders have repelled around 60 assaults by the Russian aggressor in the past 24 hours near the settlements of Vladimirovka, Nikonorovka, Krasny Liman, Suketskaya, Novoekonomicheskaya, Nikolaevka, Lisovka, Zvereva Kotlina, Udakhnaya, Novonikolaevka, Kotlerovka, and Dakhnaya. All enemy attempts to attack the Ukrainian armed forces in the Sumy region were also thwarted.
After that, everything, and I mean absolutely everything, came to a complete and utter halt in the entire Sumy region, affecting all aspects of daily life. These are the territories occupied by Russian troops in the Sumy region. They cannot be called a buffer zone.
In the past 24 hours, Russian forces carried out 6 attacks in the Kupiansk direction. Ukrainian defenders repelled enemy assault actions near the settlement of Petropavlovka and in the direction of Peshchanoye and Boguslavka. There, and not only there, the enemy has started using a new monstrous tactic. In order to save resources, Kremlin generals have begun sending their soldiers into attacks without armor or proper gear.
The enemy understands everything perfectly well and is betting on the speed of their movement, lightness, mobility, and so on. That's why this has been noticed more than once. They run to the outskirts and there they start searching and looting their fallen comrades. There they pick up body armor, helmets, and so on.
In this manner, the enemy stormed the AFU positions in the Lyman direction as many as 15 times, trying to break through the defenses near the settlements of Kolodets and Torske. But in the Dobropoli direction, the enemy is no longer eager to attack. There, on the contrary, they are desperately trying to break out of the encirclement.
Here, in the Dobropoli direction, the assault regiments have indeed carried out these encirclements, cutoffs, or the creation of cauldrons for the occupiers in which the Z military correspondents are fighting. Although, as they say, it's not all that simple, and in some locations the physical expulsion of the enemy is still ongoing. It's still too early to speak of a complete encirclement of the enemy there.
Thanks to the coordination and prompt actions of our defenders, several hundred Russian occupiers were trapped in an improvised cauldron. This was noted by the General Staff. Even more invaders were eliminated during the recent battles. The military report this.
Wherever there is an enemy, and wherever he is cut off from supplies, it covers about 300 square kilometers of territory. Now they are spreading in the direction of Dobropilia. According to Zelensky, the occupiers' losses in this operation have already reached nearly 3,000 people, most of whom are irrecoverable. The exchange fund also continues to be replenished. According to the president, this is what is happening in the north.
Meanwhile, in the east, our border guards continue to terrorize the occupiers. The day before, they managed to set a new record by neutralizing as many as 60 Russian soldiers with drones in just one day. And here, border guards from the Phoenix unit are already striking at the enemy's logistics in the Donetsk region. As a result of the drone raid, our defenders managed to destroy at least 3 motorcycles, a quad bike, a car, and 2 Russian army vans all at once. Among the high-value targets were a truck loaded with ammunition and a T-80 tank. The drone systems unit also boasted about their weekend results. The day before, they struck 3 gas distribution stations in the temporarily occupied territory of Luhansk region, which caused disruptions in the area.
Water is barely dripping, the blue fuel in the gas stove is no longer so blue, and over there, even the chandelier is freezing. So that's what happiness looks and feels like. The Shchastya gas distribution station in Luhansk region, temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine, is the main gas source for the Luhansk TPP. The Luhansk TPP has been forced to switch to operating on coal.
But even beyond the border, the occupiers can't hide from the Ukrainian armed forces and their drones. Proof of this is a new high-profile SBU operation. Security service drones destroyed the Tingovatoye oil pumping station in the Chuvash Republic of the Russian Federation, thousands of kilometers from Ukraine. It is known that the station's operations have been temporarily suspended until the extent of the damage to the facility is determined. However, according to rumors, the facility will be out of operation for a very long time.
Over the past day, Russia lost at least 1,080 troops killed and wounded. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, that's already 1,109,590 invaders. In the last 24 hours, Ukraine's defense forces also destroyed 7 Russian tanks, 53 artillery systems and dozens of other pieces of enemy equipment. Ukraine's forces downed a Russian Mi-28 attack helicopter in the Donetsk region. It was hit by a FPV drone. The cost difference between the chopper and the drone is simply huge.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Ukrainian drones also struck the Elektrodetal plant in Bryansk region. The factory makes equipment for the Russian army of occupiers, an absolutely legitimate target. In Belgorod, strikes hit energy infrastructure. Part of the city is without electricity, with water supply also disrupted. Looks like a Ukrainian mirror response. We'll wait for more details. And let me just remind you of Zelensky's words that Russia's attempts to plunge Ukrainian cities into darkness could backfire, causing blackouts in Russian cities, including Moscow. More in our next story.
Russians, including Muscovites, should start preparing for a cold and harsh winter. If Erefia does not stop its attacks on Ukraine's energy facilities, Moscow will face a blackout.
There's no need to be overly cautious in our rhetoric with the Russians. If Russia sets the goal of causing a blackout in Ukraine and pursues this goal every winter, I'm not sure that our response, or that of our other partners, should be any different. If they threaten a blackout, for example, in the capital of Ukraine, then the Kremlin should know that there will also be a blackout in the capital of Russia.
The Ukrainian defense industry and its own production of drones and missiles are the best arguments in any negotiations with Putin. The Kremlin only understands the language of force.
If any attempts to attack the Kremlin are indeed made, then how exactly will we perceive that particular situation?
Well, listen, our Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the President, has already spoken on this topic, so it's better not to even talk about it, and everyone understands that.
For the first time during the entire war, on the eve of winter, Ukraine, thanks to its own production and the supplies from its allies, has achieved parity in long-range capabilities with the occupiers.
Taking into account the climatic features of the Russian Federation and the tactical and technical characteristics of the Ukrainian side's strike capabilities, the Russian Federation is facing a harsh winter, both literally and figuratively. First and foremost, this concerns thermal power plants and other production facilities that support the vital functions of major Russian cities.
To strike at regions and cities bordering Ukraine, Kyiv has a wide range of Western missiles at its disposal.
After the latest statement by the Ukrainian president about a conversation with Trump, during which the issue of striking energy facilities in the Russian Federation was raised, including as a retaliatory measure by Ukraine in response to hostile actions by the Russian side, the corresponding approval was received. Therefore, we can say that accordingly, the territories of the Rostov, Kursk, Belgorod and Bryansk regions are within the strike zone of Western weaponry. Once again, I emphasize, these are attacks by Scalp and Storm Shadow missiles, as well as, accordingly, the modernized version of the S-200 surface-to-air missile system.
The systematic destruction of Russian oil refineries by Ukrainian drones shows that Russian air defense is incapable of protecting critical infrastructure facilities.
In several districts of the Belgorod region, only a 100 gasoline and diesel fuel are available at gas stations. Subscribers are also reporting fuel problems in the Nizhny Novgorod and Samara regions. It would be pretty epic if, in the 4th year of the war, we still can't take out their energy sector, but they managed to take out ours.
If Ukraine can use Western missiles and its own drones to strike the Russian border regions, then for Moscow and other distant cities of Russia, the threat comes from Ukrainian Flamingo drones, which have a range of up to 3,000 kilometers and a warhead weighing 1,000 kilograms.
Usually the warhead of a modern cruise missile weighs about 450, well, at most 500 kilograms. As a rule, almost all missiles have a warhead of 450 kilograms. What does a 1-ton warhead provide? If it hits a target, for example, an industrial facility, 2 such missiles will completely disable it for at least a year. That is, there will be a single crater about 20 meters in diameter.
A mirrored response will definitely come. If the Russian leadership tries once again to cut off electricity and heat for Ukrainians, it will be sentencing millions of Russians to experience all the hardships of blackouts themselves.
Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about Russia's war. Click the link in the description to become our sponsor. Now's the time to subscribe, give this video a like and share it so more people can see it. Thank you and glory to Ukraine. Tensions are rising between Kyiv and Budapest. Ukraine's foreign minister Andriy Sybiha showed the route of a Hungarian drone that violated Ukrainian airspace. Instead of apologizing, Hungarian Prime Minister Orban chose verbal attacks. Details ahead.
Espionage in favor of Moscow, a provocation for personal interests, or simply the incompetence of drone operators. In Hungary, after several days, instead of explaining what their drones were doing in Ukrainian airspace, they chose the familiar Kremlin tactic of "we're not there."
Admitting this publicly, of course, is not in the interests of the Hungarian government.
However, the story of the Hungarian drone in Ukraine is only gaining momentum, accumulating more and more new facts.
One drone has been detected and there is corresponding movement. By the way, I asked to show this to people because they say we're making things up.
In response, there was a statement from official Budapest claiming that Zelensky is seeing ghosts and that there was no drone at all. To this, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs responded not just with an accusation, but with a confirmed route of the Hungarian UAV, demanding an explanation of what it was.
For the blind Hungarian officials, here is the exact route of yesterday's drone incursion from Hungary into Ukrainian airspace. Our armed forces have gathered all the necessary evidence, and we are still waiting for an explanation from Hungary as to what this object was doing in our airspace.
At the same time, our military and analysts have provided their own explanations. So, according to one version, Hungary may have staged this provocation as a way to somehow take revenge on Ukraine for the sabotage of the Druzhba oil pipeline. And not without advice from its partner on the other side of the pipeline.
I strongly suspect that Orban is simply copying Putin's tactics. Just as Putin is now launching drones against Western countries, this first happened against Poland, and now we see unidentified drones flying over some northern countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden. They've been spotted in northern France, and people can't figure out what these drones are or where they're coming from.
At the same time, another Russian connection in this story was uncovered by investigative journalists. Hungarian media controlled by Orban and Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova made almost identical statements just a few hours apart. They claimed that, in response to the drone incursion, Ukraine would now send its own drones to Europe, specifically to Romania and Poland. However, these drones will actually be Russian, assembled from parts of downed Shaheds in Ukraine. In other words, if something happens in the West involving Russian drones, just know in advance. It was Kyiv.
Judging by the way the propaganda is being presented, it seems they're trying to downplay their own threats. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a serious attack. I saw a review of how they operate on social media. Russian bots are not so much pushing the idea that they need to defend themselves, or that Ukraine should be given less, but rather they're downplaying the danger of these attacks. So this could mean they're preparing something more serious.
Here's another theory about why a Hungarian drone ended up in Ukraine. Just routine reconnaissance work in Moscow's interests.
Many military experts note that this is how reconnaissance information is gathered, which is then simply passed on or sold to Moscow. Unfortunately, this is also possible.
And unfortunately, there is already indirect evidence of this. After all, following a recent similar incident, during the subsequent Russian shelling, the strike was delivered specifically to Zakarpattia.
There is already confirmed evidence that they had previously violated Ukraine's airspace as well. If it is proven that back then they directed a strike in Zakarpattia at an American company that was manufacturing coffee machines there, well, I think Trump's praise for Orban will change, and he will definitely have to answer for it.
Zelensky also noted that such reconnaissance activity along the route of the Hungarian drone is highly suspicious. The president refrained from direct accusations, but there was no shortage of hints that Kyiv understands everything.
It's very important what they are studying. It's very important what the Hungarian intelligence officer is studying on Ukrainian territory. I basically understand that, and I believe that they are doing very dangerous things. Very dangerous things primarily for themselves.
So what about the main figure of the event? After the verbal spat between our foreign ministries, Viktor Orban also decided to make a statement, although it would have been better if he had stayed silent.
Hungary is a member of NATO and the EU. Ukraine would have fallen long ago without the support of NATO and the EU. Mr. Zelensky, with all due respect, stop bothering us.
By the way, I'd like to add that without EU support, Hungary wouldn't have even gotten on its feet. For years now, the Orban regime has existed solely thanks to subsidies from the European Union, and the more provocations come from Budapest, the more chances Hungary has to lose this support.
And finally, political resistance to Russian aggression. Pro-European forces of President Maia Sandu are winning the elections in Moldova. With 100% of votes counted, they secured support from more than half of voters. The pro-Russian bloc gained about 24%. Of course, this is Moldova's internal matter, but it's good news that Russia failed to destabilize the country. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Strength to Ukraine's defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share. See you next time, which is tomorrow.